Welcome, Manny Collins here for Brutus Monroe. Today we're going to create a mini slimline card. Let's go to the products I used to create this card. I brought in the Kind Blossoms stamp set and its coordinating die. So from the Kind Blossom stamp set, I'm going to be using this little cluster here, this single floral, some leaves, and these longer stems. The sentiment, you are amazing. This is a 27-piece set. You have a variety of florals, sentiments, and you can create a window box. Like I said, I'll be using the coordinating dies, and I love these dies because they are already cut apart for you. We'll be using the mini slimline stencil. The stencil is called Daybreak, and this is what it looks like right here. We're going to use that with our glitter glaze. So the papers I used are the Perfect Blend alcohol marker cardstock and the Slimline card panels. These are 80-pound weight, and these are for normal slimline, but we'll use it, and any leftover we'll use for our sentiment. These are the alcohol markers I used to color my images. I will have those listed below. The glitter glaze I used was the silver, and I'm going to bring in some Galaxy powder in Blue and Beyond. Later on, I'll bring in some Chroma mist and Raven detail ink. I went ahead and stamped and colored and die cut our images off screen to save us some time. So here are our little floral clusters and the single florals, as well as the leaves and stems are in that little tray. We'll be using our stick and stamp mat to create today as well. So as I said, this is a mini slimline panel, which I've cut my top panel down to match it, and here's a card base, which is 110 pounds. Whatever was left over from the card panel, from the slimline panel, I will use to stamp my sentiment on. We're going to start by using the Galaxy powder and a little bit of water to get that activated. So I started putting this on, and it gives you this lovely pale blue background, like a splattered, but I wanted a little bit bolder blue to come through. So I added more and more water, but it still wasn't giving me the effect that I was looking for. So I went ahead and dried this off, and then I bring in some Chroma mist. See, this is where I was like, no, I need a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and dry this off. I dry the panel front and back, and then I go ahead and spray this with some Chroma mist, and then I dry it as well. So here's what it looks like with the Chroma mist. And then I also added just a little bit more of that Galaxy powder. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and place my top panel on the stick and stamp mat and place my stencil. My stencil is the same size as my panel, so there really isn't anything for the mat to grip. So I'm going to add 2 small pieces of washi. That really doesn't need it, but I went ahead and did it just in case. I'm going to place now the glitter paste over my stencil. And again, this is in silver, and I'm just putting a nice thin layer of it, removing any of the excess, putting it back into my pot, and placing the plastic cover. That will keep it nice and moist, so always replace your plastic cover on your pots there. Removing my stencil, and then I'll remove my panel off my mat. Give it a quick dry, and then I'll set it aside so we can stamp our sentiment. Bringing in the Raven detail ink and the sentiment here, but I'm going to place my sentiment panel on my stamp and stick mat, and since my table is quite slick, I put a little piece of washi so my mat doesn't move. So I'm going to go ahead and put my sentiment on my acrylic block, ink it up. I start with the word amazing so that I can nestle in the UR part. I'm using my stamp cleaner here, my squeaky clean stamp cleaner, to my stamps so I can put them back so I don't lose any of them. Alright, so here I'm going to nestle in the UR, and now I will remove that panel off the stamp and stick mat, place my protective cover on that, and set it to the side. I made sure to pull or stamp on the section that was a little bit lighter than the base. This way it would stand out. Alright, so I'm returning all my stamps, And I'm going to bring in my tiny trimmer here and trim my sentiment down. I'm going to angle one part of it, and then I will mat this on some white cardstock. My card panel is a little bit smaller than my card base, so I will be left with a small white border all the way around. So I wanted to repeat that same process on the sentiment. Once that is trimmed down, I'm going to add some foam adhesive to the back of that, have it all ready, and then I'll set it to the side so we can work on our card itself. So here's my panel. It's a little warped from all the, you know, everything we've done to it. So now I've made sure I put some double-sided adhesive on here, and I'm also going to bring in some Barely Art glue just to make sure that this panel lays as flat as possible. It won't lay completely flat. I mean, there is warpage from all that water and drying and, you know, the glaze and everything else, but it's a handmade card, and that gives it that beautiful appeal to it. Alright, so I'm going to straighten this out because I put it down a little crooked. Once I have it on there straight, we can start building our little floral cluster, and I'm going to build it here towards the bottom left hand corner. On all my floral pieces, I put some foam adhesive so they will pop up, and I'm just going to remove the backing off of them and start tucking them in here, deciding where I want them. And then for my leaves and these stems, I'm just going to go ahead and use the Barely Art glue directly onto the back of those, and I tuck them into the clusters here. I'm sorry, my card is a bit off screen. I finally realized it and move it up so you can see a little better of what I'm doing. I moved that leaf around and finally decided I want to place it up here because there is a bit of an empty spot. Alright, so now I decide I want my sentiment nestled within the florals, so I'm going to do that. And then for a finishing touch, I'm going to bring in some enamel hearts. Since we are adhering these to all that glitter glaze, I want to make sure I put a little extra adhesive, so I put little dots of Barely Art glue. And now our card is finished. You have all that beautiful shine from the glitter glaze, and then the dimension from the flowers. Again, we used the Kind Blossom stamp set and coordinating dies, the mini Slimline Daybreak stencil, Chroma Mist in turquoise, Galaxy powder in beyond blue, and glitter glaze in silver. I'll have everything listed in the description box below, and I hope you found some inspiration.